The Deep Space Monitoring Station picked up the signals first. Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming across the control room. He set down his cup and rushed to the main console where the displays showed, something that made his blood run cold. Massive objects were moving toward Earth from the outer edge of the solar system. Jake had been working at the monitoring station for 12 years. He had seen asteroids and comets and space debris. He had never seen anything like this. The objects were huge, and they were moving in perfect formation. They were clearly artificial, and they were heading straight for Earth. He grabbed the emergency phone and called Earth Defense Command. The voice on the other end was calm until Jake started describing what he was seeing. Then there was silence for a long moment before the voice told him to send all the data immediately and keep watching. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Vexthor was reviewing the final reports about the third planet in the Yellow Star system. His officers had done their work well. The planet showed all the signs of a primitive civilization that would be easy to conquer. The inhabitants used basic fusion reactors and crude chemical rockets. Their largest ships were tiny, and their weapons were simple projectile systems and basic energy devices. Vexthor had conquered many worlds for the Zelkarian Empire. This one looked like it would be the easiest yet. The intelligence reports showed that the humans fought each other frequently, but had never faced a real enemy from space. They would surrender quickly once they saw the power of the Imperial fleet. The Admiral looked at the tactical display showing his fleet of 300 ships. Each one was larger and more powerful than anything the humans had ever built. The flagship alone carried enough firepower to destroy every human vessel in their primitive fleet. This would be over in days. Back on Earth, Lisa Barnes was staring at the telescope images from the Mars orbital platform. The alien ships were getting closer, and she could see them more clearly now. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. The hulls were made of some kind of metal that seemed to shine with its own light. The weapons systems were unlike anything. In human military databases, Lisa had been a military engineer before joining the orbital defense program. She understood weapons, and she understood spacecraft. Looking at these alien vessels made her realize how far behind humanity really was. The smallest alien ship was larger than Earth's biggest battleship. The largest one looked like it could hold an entire human city inside it. She started taking detailed measurements and sending them to Earth Defense Command. Someone needed to understand what humanity was facing. The more she analyzed the alien ships, the more worried she became. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had developed. President Catherine Walsh was in an emergency meeting when the latest reports arrived. The military advisors were arguing about response options, but Catherine could see the truth in their faces. They were scared. Everyone in the room was scared because they all understood what the numbers meant. The alien fleet had enough firepower to destroy every major city on Earth in a matter of hours. Human weapons might not even be able to damage their ships. The Space Force could launch every vessel Earth had, and it would be like throwing rocks at a mountain. Catherine listened to the arguments about negotiation and defensive positions and evacuation plans. None of it mattered. If these aliens wanted to destroy humanity, there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. The only hope was that they wanted something other than total destruction. Ryan Hayes was reading the intelligence reports in his underground office. As head of military intelligence, he had access to information that terrified him. The alien ships were not just powerful, they were efficient. Their formation patterns and movement suggested a military force that had done this many times before. Ryan had studied human military history, and he recognized the signs. This was not an exploration mission or a diplomatic contact. This was an invasion fleet that knew exactly what it was doing. The aliens had studied Earth, and they had planned this attack carefully. But as Ryan read the reports more carefully, he started to notice something interesting. The alien fleet was powerful, but it was also predictable. They moved in standard formations and followed obvious tactical patterns. They were clearly experienced, but they might also be overconfident. Amanda Foster was working late in her laboratory when the emergency alert came through. As one of Earth's leading experts on exotic physics, she had been called in to analyze the alien technology. The images from the telescopes showed energy signatures that were fascinating and terrifying. Amanda could see that the aliens used some kind of energy shielding system that was far beyond human technology. Their weapons seemed to be based on principles that human science was only beginning to understand. But as she studied the data, she realized something important. The alien technology was advanced, but it was not magic. It followed the same basic physical laws that governed human technology. That meant it could be understood and maybe even copied if someone was smart enough and desperate enough. The alien fleet was 3 days away from Earth when the final intelligence reports were completed. Admiral Vexthor read them with satisfaction. The humans had detected the fleet and were clearly preparing some kind of response, but it did not matter. Their technology was too primitive and their military was too weak. Soon the third planet would be another conquest for the Zelkarian Empire. The humans would surrender or they would be destroyed. Either way, the outcome was already decided. The first alien attack came at dawn. 3 Zelkarian destroyers approached Earth's moon and targeted the main mining station there. The weapons they used turned solid rock and metal into glowing plasma in seconds. The mining station simply vanished in a flash of light that could be seen from Earth with the naked eye. Admiral Vexthor watched the demonstration from his flagship. The destruction of the human facility had been perfect, clean and efficient and completely overwhelming. Now the humans would understand what they were facing. The next step was to send the surrender demand. The message was broadcast on every frequency that humans used for communication. The translation systems made the words clear and simple. The Zelkarian Empire demanded immediate surrender. All human military forces were to stand down. All human leaders were to report to designated locations for processing. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of human civilization. Jake Morrison received the message at the monitoring station and forwarded it immediately to Earth Defense Command. He could hear the fear in the voices of the people he spoke with. Everyone understood that the aliens had the power to do exactly what they threatened. President Catherine Walsh called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. The underground bunker beneath Colorado was filled with military leaders and government officials from around the world. The conversation was short and brutal. Everyone agreed that direct military resistance would be suicide. General Patricia Kane presented the military analysis. The alien weapons could destroy any human vessel before it got close enough to fight back. The alien shields could stop any weapon in the human arsenal. Even using nuclear weapons would only delay the inevitable and would probably result in the aliens destroying major human cities in response. But Colonel Ryan Hayes had a different idea. He stood up and presented a plan that shocked everyone in the room. Humanity would surrender exactly as the aliens demanded, but the surrender would only be on the surface. Underground, the real war would begin. Ryan explained his thinking. The Bishu aliens were clearly experienced conquerors, but they seemed to follow standard patterns. They expected quick surrender followed by efficient control of the defeated population. They would get exactly what they expected to see, while humanity prepared for something completely different. Amanda Foster was called in to brief the Council on alien technology. She had been studying the energy signatures and weapon patterns since the first attack. Her conclusion was both encouraging and terrifying. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also specialized for the kind of warfare they were used to fighting. Amanda explained that the alien shields and sensors were designed to stop the kind of attacks they expected. Energy weapons and missile systems and other conventional military technology. But they might be vulnerable to approaches that were completely different from normal warfare. Lisa Barnes joined the briefing by video link from the Mars platform. She had been analyzing the alien ships and had discovered something important. The aliens were using standard formation patterns and predictable patrol routes. They were confident and efficient, but they were also following a routine that could be studied and exploited. The plan that emerged from the emergency session was unlike anything in human military history. Earth would officially surrender within 72 hours. Human leaders would report to the aliens as demanded. Human military forces would stand down publicly and surrender their weapons. But beneath the surface, humanity would begin the largest deception operation ever attempted. Every major population center had underground tunnels and hidden facilities that the aliens would not detect. Human scientists and engineers would be moved to secret laboratories where they could study captured alien technology. Ryan Hayes would coordinate the resistance network using communication systems that the aliens would not recognize. The plan was to make the occupation look completely successful while actually preparing for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Kevin Turner was a sergeant in the Detroit City Police when the surrender order came through. He watched human military units marching to surrender points with their weapons held high. He saw alien troops taking control of major buildings and transportation hubs. Everything looked exactly like a normal occupation. But Kevin also saw the subtle signs that something else was happening. Certain people were missing from the surrender lines. Equipment was disappearing from warehouses just before the aliens secured them. Messages were being passed through networks that looked like normal civilian communication but carried hidden meanings. Susan Clark was a major in military intelligence when she received her new assignment. Officially, she was processed as a surrendered officer and assigned to help the aliens understand human administrative systems. Actually, she was gathering information about alien communication protocols and command structures. Susan discovered that the aliens were incredibly advanced, but also incredibly predictable. They followed the same procedures they had used on dozens of other conquered worlds. They never considered that a defeated species might be capable of learning and adapting faster than they could respond. Admiral Vex Thor established his command center in Geneva and began the standard occupation procedures. Human leaders were processed and assigned to help maintain order among the defeated population. Human military personnel were disarmed and assigned to labor details. Human industrial facilities were surveyed for useful resources. Everything proceeded exactly according to Imperial doctrine. The humans had surrendered quickly and completely. They showed no signs of organized resistance. Their leaders were cooperative, and their population was submissive. This conquest was proceeding even more smoothly than the intelligence reports had predicted. But beneath the surface, Amanda Foster was working in a hidden laboratory studying pieces of alien technology that had been secretly collected. Ryan Hayes was building a communication network that connected resistance cells in every major city. Lisa Barnes was tracking alien patrol patterns and identifying weaknesses in their security procedures. The aliens thought they had conquered Earth in 3 days. Actually, they had walked into the largest trap in human history. The real war was about to begin, and humanity had already gained the most important advantage possible. The enemy had no idea what they were really facing. 6 months after the surrender, the first resistance operation began. Kevin Turner led a team of 12 people through the ruins of downtown Detroit. They moved carefully through abandoned buildings and empty streets until they reached the target. A Zelkarian patrol craft had landed in a small park to investigate reports of unusual activity. Kevin and his team had been planning this operation for weeks. They knew the patrol schedule, and they understood the alien security procedures. Most importantly, they had weapons and equipment that Amanda Foster had designed specifically to disable alien technology without triggering their automatic distress systems. The attack lasted less than 5 minutes. The alien patrol never knew what hit them. One moment they were investigating empty buildings, and the next moment their equipment was failing and human fighters were surrounding them. The aliens tried to call for help, but their communication systems had been jammed by devices that used their own technology against them. Amanda Foster arrived at the scene within an hour. She had been waiting for this moment since the surrender. Finally, she would have access to intact alien technology that she could study properly. The captured patrol craft was loaded with equipment that would reveal secrets the aliens never intended to share. The aliens in the patrol had been captured alive. Susan Clark began interrogating them immediately using translation software that had been developed from intercepted alien communications. What she learned changed everything the Resistance thought they knew about their enemy. The Zelkarian Empire had conquered 43 worlds in the past 2 centuries. Every single conquest had followed the same pattern: a massive show of force, followed by immediate surrender and efficient occupation. The Empire had never faced a species that continued fighting after defeat. The captured aliens were confused and frightened by what had happened to them. Their training had prepared them for conventional warfare and occupation duty, but nothing in their experience had prepared them for enemies who appeared defeated but continued to fight from hiding. Ryan Hayes received Susan's report and realized that humanity had stumbled onto something incredible. The aliens were not just technologically advanced, they were also completely predictable. They had never learned to adapt because they had never needed to. Every enemy they had ever faced had been defeated by standard Imperial tactics. Amanda Foster's analysis of the captured technology revealed even more important information. The alien weapons and shields were incredibly sophisticated, but they were also highly specialized. They were designed to counter specific types of threats using principles that had been proven effective against conventional military forces, but humans were not fighting a conventional war. The Resistance was using tactics and technologies that the aliens had never encountered before. Modified human equipment that combined alien technology with human innovation was proving effective against systems that were supposedly superior. Lisa Barnes coordinated the next phase of operations from her hidden command center in the Australian outback. Intelligence reports from resistance cells around the world showed that the aliens were becoming increasingly confused by human behavior. Patrols were disappearing without sending distress calls. Supply convoys were being attacked by weapons that should not have existed. Tyler Brooks led the most daring operation of the early resistance. His team infiltrated the alien supply depot outside London and captured an entire shipment of advanced weapons and equipment. The operation was planned using intelligence that Susan Clark had gathered from the captured patrol members. The attack on the supply depot revealed something that shocked the resistance leadership. The aliens had no backup plans for dealing with guerrilla warfare. Their security procedures were designed to prevent conventional military attacks, but they were completely vulnerable to small teams using unconventional tactics. Admiral Vex Thor received increasingly disturbing reports from his ground commanders. The human population was supposedly under complete control, but military equipment was disappearing from secured facilities. Alien patrols were encountering unexpected resistance from people who should have been completely defeated. The Admiral demanded explanations from his staff, but no one could provide answers that made sense. The humans had surrendered completely and shown no signs of organized resistance. Their military forces had been disbanded and their weapons had been confiscated. Yet somehow they were obtaining advanced technology and using it effectively against Imperial forces. Amanda Foster made the breakthrough that changed the course of the resistance. Her analysis of captured alien equipment revealed that their energy shields operated on frequencies that could be disrupted by modified human radio transmitters. The discovery meant that human forces could potentially damage or destroy alien vehicles using equipment that could be built in hidden workshops. The first successful test came when Kevin Turner's team used Amanda's frequency disruptor to disable an alien armored vehicle. The massive machine simply stopped working when the human device activated. The aliens inside were captured along with their equipment, and the Resistance gained another source of valuable intelligence. News of the success spread through the Resistance network using communication systems that the aliens could not detect. Ryan Hayes had created a network that looked like normal civilian internet traffic, but actually carried encrypted military communications between Resistance cells worldwide. Nicole Sanders led the operation that captured the first alien aircraft. Her team used a combination of Amanda's frequency disruptors and modified human missiles to force down an alien transport that was carrying important equipment. The captured aircraft provided the Resistance with technology that was even more advanced than anything they had studied before. Susan Clark's interrogation of the captured aircrew revealed the most important intelligence yet. The aliens were not just confused by human resistance, they were actually frightened. Nothing in their military doctrine had prepared them for enemies who learned and adapted faster than Imperial forces could respond. The Resistance was discovering something that the Zelkarian Empire had never understood. Humans were not just another primitive species that could be conquered with superior technology. They were something completely different. A species that treated every defeat as a learning opportunity and every challenge as a chance to become stronger. Admiral Vex Thor sent his first request for reinforcements 6 months after the original conquest. His report to Imperial Command described a situation that no previous conquest had ever produced. The humans were not just resisting, they were evolving. Their technology was advancing, and their tactics were becoming more sophisticated with every engagement. The Empire had sent their strongest forces to conquer what they thought was a primitive world. Instead, they had encountered something that would force them to question everything they thought they knew about warfare and conquest. 1 year after the surrender, everything changed. Tyler Brooks stood on a hill overlooking Geneva and watched through binoculars as his assault teams moved into position around the Zelkarian Command Center. The building had once been a human government facility, but now it housed the aliens who thought they controlled Earth. Tyler's teams were equipped with weapons that would have been impossible to imagine before the invasion. Human engineering combined with alien technology had produced equipment that was more advanced than anything either species had built alone. The soldiers moving toward the command center carried weapons that could punch through alien armor and shields that could stop alien energy weapons. Amanda Foster watched the assault from a mobile command vehicle filled with monitoring equipment. She had spent months analyzing the alien command center, and she knew exactly how their defensive systems worked. More importantly, she knew how to defeat them using principles that the aliens had never considered. The attack began at exactly noon, when Amanda's team activated a massive frequency disruptor that had been built using alien power cores and human broadcast technology. The alien shields around the command center flickered and failed as their control systems were overwhelmed by signals they could not filter or block. Ryan Hayes coordinated the overall operation from his hidden command center. Intelligence reports showed that alien forces throughout the region were responding to the attack, but they were moving in predictable patterns that the Resistance had been studying for months. Human teams were positioned to intercept and delay the alien reinforcements. The assault teams reached the command center walls in less than 10 minutes. Kevin Turner led the team that breached the main entrance using explosive charges that combined human demolition techniques with alien energy technology. The weapons were more powerful than anything humans had ever built, but they were also more precise and controlled. Inside the command center, the aliens were in complete chaos. Their communication systems were being jammed by human transmitters, using alien frequencies. Their defensive weapons could not target enemies who were using alien shield technology to become invisible to alien sensors. Everything they had been trained to do was useless against attackers who understood their technology better than they did. Admiral Vex Thor was in his command room when the attack began. He tried to contact his fleet in orbit, but the communication systems were not responding. He tried to activate the building's defensive systems, but the controls were not working. For the first time in his military career, he was facing an enemy that had turned his own technology against him. Susan Clark led the team that captured the alien command staff. Her people moved through the building with precision that came from months of studying the facility's layout and security procedures. The aliens tried to resist, but their weapons were useless against shields that had been designed using their own technology. The capture of Admiral Vex Thor himself was the prize that made the entire operation worthwhile. The leader of the occupation forces was taken alive along with his entire command staff and all of their equipment. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had access to the highest levels of alien military intelligence. Lisa Barnes arrived at the command center as the fighting ended. Her job was to analyze the alien computer systems and extract every piece of information they contained. What she found exceeded even the most optimistic hopes of the Resistance leadership. The alien databases contained complete records of Imperial military doctrine and detailed information about every world the Empire had ever conquered. More importantly, they contained strategic assessments that revealed how the aliens viewed the situation on Earth. The reports showed that Admiral Vex Thor had been sending increasingly desperate messages to Imperial Command for months. The occupation was not proceeding according to standard procedures. Human resistance was unlike anything in Imperial experience. The aliens were facing tactics and technologies that their military doctrine had no procedures to counter. Nicole Sanders led the team that secured the alien communication equipment. The devices were more advanced than anything humans had ever built, but they operated on principles that Amanda Foster had already learned to understand and modify. Within hours, human technicians were monitoring alien communications throughout the solar system. What they heard confirmed that the Resistance had achieved something unprecedented. The Zelkarian Empire was confused and frightened by what was happening on Earth. Reports from other occupied worlds showed that news of human resistance was spreading and inspiring hope among other conquered species. Patricia Kane arrived at the captured command center to assess the intelligence windfall. As the senior military officer in the Resistance, she understood the strategic implications of what had been accomplished. The humans had not just captured an alien facility, they had demonstrated capabilities that the Empire could not explain or counter. The interrogation of Admiral Vexthor began immediately. Susan Clark used alien translation technology to communicate. With the captured commander, and what she learned changed everything. The Resistance thought they knew about their situation. The Zelkarian Empire was not the invincible force it appeared to be. The Imperial military was powerful, but it was also rigid and inflexible. They had conquered dozens of worlds using the same tactics and procedures every time. They had never learned to adapt because they had never needed to. Admiral Vexthor admitted that the situation on Earth was unlike anything in Imperial history. The humans had been completely defeated and had surrendered unconditionally. Yet somehow they had continued fighting and had actually become more dangerous over time. Their technology was advancing faster than Imperial analysts could track, and their tactics were evolving beyond anything in the military databases. Amanda Foster analyzed the captured alien equipment and made discoveries that revolutionized human understanding of advanced technology. The aliens used incredibly sophisticated systems, but they were all based on principles that human science could understand and improve upon. The breakthrough came when Amanda realized that alien technology was actually less flexible than human technology. The aliens built systems that were perfect for specific purposes, but could not be easily modified or adapted. Human technology was less advanced, but it was also more versatile and could be changed to meet new requirements. Ryan Hayes received reports from resistance cells around the world, confirming that the capture of the command center had triggered a planet-wide uprising. Human forces were attacking alien positions everywhere using weapons and tactics that the aliens could not counter. The occupation was collapsing as alien forces found themselves fighting an enemy they could not understand or defeat. The war had entered a new phase. Humanity was no longer hiding and striking from the shadows. They were fighting openly using technology that was superior to anything the aliens possessed. The hunters had become the hunted, and the Zelkarian Empire was about to learn what happened when they underestimated the species they thought they had conquered. The alien fleet in orbit around Earth was in chaos. Captain Daniel Hayes watched from the bridge of the newly completed human battleship Liberation as alien vessels tried desperately to respond to attacks they could not understand. The ship he commanded had been built in secret, using technology that combined the best of human and alien engineering. Daniel's fleet consisted of 40 vessels that had been constructed in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. Each ship was smaller than the massive alien vessels, but they were also faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, they were equipped with weapons and shields that the aliens could not counter effectively. The attack began when Nicole Sanders led a squadron of modified human fighters against the alien patrol ships. The fighters had been built using alien power systems and human design principles. They were fast enough to avoid alien weapons and powerful enough to penetrate alien defenses. Amanda Foster coordinated the technical aspects of the battle from her position on the Liberation. She had spent 2 years studying alien technology and developing countermeasures for every system the Empire used. Her modifications to human weapons allowed them to punch through alien shields that were supposed to be impenetrable. The first alien ship to fall was a destroyer that had been isolated from the main fleet. Ryan Hayes led the boarding party that captured the vessel intact. His team used equipment that made them invisible to alien sensors and weapons that disabled alien crew members without damaging the ship's systems. Admiral Vexthor tried to coordinate. The defense from his flagship but his communication systems were being jammed by human transmitters that used alien frequencies against them. Every order he tried to send was intercepted and countered by human forces that seemed to know his plans before he could implement them. Lisa Barnes monitored the battle from the human command center and coordinated intelligence-gathering operations. Her teams were intercepting alien communications and analyzing their tactical responses in real time. The information was being used to predict alien movements and counter their defensive measures. The breakthrough came when Tyler Brooks led an assault on the alien flagship itself. His team used a captured alien transport to approach the massive vessel without being detected. Once they were inside the ship's defenses, they began systematically disabling critical systems using techniques that Amanda Foster had developed. The capture of the flagship was a disaster for the Zelkarian Empire. The vessel contained the complete Imperial database and communication codes for the entire sector. Human forces suddenly had access to information about alien operations throughout dozens of star systems. Kevin Turner led the ground assault that captured the orbital defense platforms the aliens had built around Earth. The platforms were designed to prevent human ships from leaving the planet, but they were vulnerable to attack from below using weapons that could not be detected by their sensors. Susan Clark interrogated the captured alien officers and learned that the Empire was facing resistance on multiple worlds. News of human success had spread through Imperial communication networks, and other conquered species were beginning to fight back using tactics they had learned from Earth. Patricia Kane analyzed the strategic situation and realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had not just defeated an alien invasion, they had captured enough technology and intelligence to threaten the Empire itself. The war was expanding beyond Earth, and the aliens were losing control of their empire. The final battle came when Daniel Hayes led the human fleet against the main alien battle group. The engagement lasted 6 hours and demonstrated that human forces had achieved technological superiority over their former conquerors. Alien ships that had once seemed invincible were destroyed or captured by human vessels that used their own technology against them. Admiral Vexthor surrendered when his flagship was boarded and his remaining forces were surrounded. The proud leader, who had expected an easy conquest, found himself prisoner of a species he had completely underestimated. His surrender message was broadcast throughout the Empire and marked the beginning of its collapse. Nicole Sanders accepted the formal surrender aboard the captured alien flagship. The ceremony was broadcast to every world in the Empire and showed that the supposedly invincible Zelkarian military had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The terms of surrender were dictated by human leaders who had learned to think like conquerors. The Empire would withdraw from all occupied worlds immediately. They would pay reparations for the damage they had caused during their expansion. Most importantly, they would acknowledge human authority over the territory they had once claimed. Ryan Hayes established the new intelligence network that would monitor former Imperial territory and ensure that the aliens did not attempt to rebuild their military forces. Human observers would be stationed on key worlds to prevent any resurgence of Imperial power. Amanda Foster began the process of distributing advanced technology to the species that had been liberated from Imperial rule. Her goal was to ensure that no single power could ever again dominate the galaxy the way the Empire had done. Lisa Barnes coordinated the establishment of human colonies on strategic worlds throughout former Imperial territory. The colonies would serve as bases for the new galactic order that humanity was creating to replace the Empire. The transformation was complete within 5 years. The Zelkarian Empire that had ruled dozens of worlds for centuries was reduced to a single star system under human supervision. The species that had once conquered others were now subjects of the people they had tried to enslave. Daniel Hayes was promoted to admiral and given command of the new human fleet that patrolled former Imperial territory. His ships ensured that peace was maintained and that the mistakes of the Empire were not repeated by anyone else. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten. Technology alone did not guarantee victory. The most advanced weapons and the largest fleets could be defeated by intelligence and determination and the willingness to adapt. Humanity had proven that strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the ability to learn and grow and overcome any challenge. The Empire had sent their strongest forces expecting to face primitive resistance. Instead, they had encountered a species that turned every challenge into an opportunity and every defeat into a lesson. The result was a transformation that changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever and established humanity as the dominant force among the stars. The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Rachel Miller stood in the communications center of the human embassy on Kepler Prime and watched as reports arrived from dozens of worlds that had once been part of the Zelkarian Empire. The conquered species were rising up everywhere and demanding their freedom. The revolution had begun on Altara 7, where the native population had learned about human resistance tactics through intercepted Imperial communications. The Altarans used the same principles that humans had developed during their underground war. They appeared to accept alien rule while secretly preparing for rebellion, using captured technology and improvised weapons. Brian Foster was leading the human technical assistance team on New Centauri when the local uprising began. His job was to help the liberated populations understand and use the advanced technology that the Empire had left behind. What he discovered was that every species had capabilities that the Empire had never recognized or developed. The Centaurians were master engineers who had been forced to work in Imperial factories building weapons and spacecraft. Once they were free, they began modifying alien technology, using techniques that even human scientists found impressive. Their innovations improved on Imperial designs in ways that the original builders had never imagined. Amanda Foster received reports from technical teams throughout former Imperial territory describing discoveries that revolutionized understanding of galactic science. Each liberated species brought unique knowledge and abilities that had been suppressed during Imperial rule. The combination of different approaches to technology was producing advances that no single species could have achieved alone. On Rigel 4, the native population had developed biological sciences that allowed them to interface directly with alien computer systems. David Wilson led the human research team that studied these techniques and learned how to integrate biological and technological systems in ways that created entirely new types of equipment and weapons. The most significant development came from the water world of Aquarius, where the native species had evolved natural abilities to manipulate electromagnetic fields. Jennifer Hayes worked with the Aquarian scientists to develop shielding systems that were far more advanced than anything the Empire had ever built. Ryan Hayes coordinated the intelligence network that monitored the collapse of Imperial authority throughout the galaxy. His reports showed that the Empire was losing control of territory faster than they could deploy reinforcements. The psychological impact of humanity's victory was destroying Imperial morale and encouraging resistance everywhere. The situation on the Imperial homeworld itself was becoming desperate. Intelligence reports showed that the ruling council was divided between those who wanted to negotiate peace and those who believed the Empire could still win through superior technology. The internal conflict was paralyzing their ability to respond effectively to the spreading rebellion. Admiral Daniel Hayes received authorization to establish permanent human bases in key locations throughout former Imperial territory. The bases would serve multiple purposes, including defense against any Imperial counterattack and assistance to newly liberated populations. Most importantly, they would ensure that the galaxy never again fell under the control of a single oppressive empire. Lisa. Barnes analyzed the strategic situation and concluded that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not just defeated a powerful enemy, they had inspired a fundamental transformation in how different species related to each other. The age of empires built on conquest and oppression was ending. The transformation was most visible on worlds, where multiple species had been forced to work together under imperial rule. Tyler Brooks observed the situation on Industrial Station Gamma, where humans and 5 other species were cooperating to rebuild facilities that the Empire had used for weapons production. The cooperation was producing innovations that none of the species could have achieved alone. Nicole Sanders commanded the human fleet that was helping to establish the new Galactic Communication Network. The system would allow all liberated species to share information and coordinate their development without the need for a central authority. It was designed to prevent any future empire from controlling information the way the Zelkarians had done. The technology sharing agreements that Amanda Foster negotiated were creating a renaissance of scientific advancement throughout the galaxy. Each species contributed their unique knowledge and abilities to collaborative research projects that were pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. Kevin Turner led the security teams that were helping former Imperial subjects establish their own defense forces. The training programs combined human military doctrine with the unique capabilities of each species. The result was defensive systems that were far more effective than anything the Empire had ever faced. Susan Clark coordinated the diplomatic efforts that were establishing formal relationships between the liberated worlds. The new Galactic Council would be based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced submission. Each species would maintain their independence while working together for mutual benefit. The psychological impact of the transformation extended beyond military and political changes. Patricia Kane observed that the liberated species were rediscovering cultural traditions and scientific approaches that had been suppressed during imperial rule. The galaxy was becoming more diverse and creative as each world developed according to its own nature rather than imperial requirements. The former Imperial worlds were not just recovering from conquest, they were surpassing their previous achievements. The combination of different species working together was producing advances in science and technology that were beyond anything any single civilization had ever accomplished. Rachel Miller received reports showing that even former Imperial citizens were beginning to embrace the new order. Many Zelkarians had been forced to serve the Empire against their own beliefs and values. Once they were free to choose, they often decided to work with other species rather than trying to rebuild the old system of domination. The galaxy was being transformed from a collection of conquered territories ruled by fear into a community of independent worlds united by shared goals and mutual respect. Humanity had not just won a war. They had started a revolution that was changing the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The empire that had once seemed invincible was becoming a historical curiosity. Future generations would study how A rigid system based on technological superiority had been defeated by flexible thinking and cooperative effort. The lesson would ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. 10 years after the fall of the Zelkarian Empire, the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. Captain Sarah Williams stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel, Pioneer, and watched as the ship approached a system that had never been visited by any known civilization. Humanity was leading the effort to explore beyond the boundaries of former imperial territory. The exploration missions were joint operations that included representatives from dozens of species. Each expedition combined human leadership with the unique abilities of other galactic civilizations. The Pioneer carried Centaurian engineers who could modify any technology they encountered, and Aquarian scientists who could analyze energy patterns that other species could not even detect. Commander Mark Taylor coordinated the scientific teams that were making discoveries that revolutionized understanding of the universe. The cooperation between different species was producing insights that no single civilization could have achieved. Each world they visited revealed new possibilities for science and technology. The most significant discovery came when the exploration fleet encountered the ruins of an ancient civilization that had existed millions of years before the rise of the Empire. Dr. Emma Johnson led the archaeological team that studied the artifacts and learned that the galaxy had once been home to dozens of advanced civilizations that had worked together peacefully. The ancient records showed that cooperation between different species was not a new idea. The ruins contained technology that was more advanced than anything the modern galaxy had developed because it had been created by multiple civilizations working together. The discovery proved that the Empire's philosophy of conquest and domination had been a historical aberration. Admiral Robert Chen commanded the defense fleet that protected the exploration missions and maintained peace throughout liberated territory. His forces included ships from every major civilization and demonstrated that former enemies could work together effectively when they shared common goals. The new galactic government was based on principles that the Empire had never understood. Each world maintained complete independence while participating in voluntary cooperation for mutual benefit. The system worked because it was based on respect for the unique capabilities of each species rather than forced conformity to a single standard. Dr. Amanda Foster had become the director of the Galactic Science Council and was coordinating research projects that involved scientists from hundreds of worlds. Her work was producing advances that were transforming life throughout the galaxy. Medical discoveries were extending lifespans and improving quality of life for every species. Energy technologies were providing unlimited clean power for all civilizations. The communication networks that connected every world in the galaxy were carrying more than just scientific and technical information. Cultural exchanges were creating new forms of art and entertainment that combined the traditions of multiple species. The galaxy was becoming more creative and diverse as different civilizations learned from each other. Ryan Hayes directed the intelligence service that monitored threats to galactic peace and security. His organization was completely different from the Imperial intelligence system that had been based on fear and oppression. The new service protected freedom and independence rather than enforcing conformity and submission. The economic system that had developed after the fall of the Empire was based on trade and cooperation rather than tribute and exploitation. Each world contributed what it could produce most efficiently and received what it needed from other civilizations. The result was prosperity for everyone, rather than wealth concentrated in the hands of imperial elites. Lisa Barnes managed the educational programs that were sharing knowledge throughout the galaxy. The Empire had restricted access to advanced technology and scientific information to maintain control over subject populations. The new system made all knowledge freely available to anyone who wanted to learn. The transformation was most visible in the former Imperial Core worlds where Zelkarian civilization was adapting to the new galactic order. Many former Imperial citizens had embraced the principles of cooperation and mutual respect. They were contributing their own knowledge and abilities to the common effort to build a better galaxy. Tyler Brooks led the engineering teams that were helping less advanced civilizations develop technology appropriate to their needs and capabilities. The approach was completely different from Imperial policy, which had forced all species to use the same equipment, whether it was suitable for them or not. The new approach recognized that different species had different strengths and requirements. Technology was adapted to work with natural abilities rather than replacing them. The result was more effective and efficient systems that enhanced what each species could do naturally. Nicole Sanders commanded the transport fleet that connected every world in the galaxy. The ships carried people and goods and information between civilizations that had never been able to communicate before the fall of the Empire. The network was creating opportunities for cooperation that were producing unprecedented advances in every field. The medical discoveries that resulted from sharing knowledge between different species were eliminating diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. Each species had evolved different approaches to health and medicine. When these approaches were combined, they created treatments that were more effective than anything any single civilization had developed. Kevin Turner directed the security forces that protected the new galactic order from those who wanted to return to the old system of empire and conquest. His organization was based on volunteer cooperation rather than forced service. The personnel came from every civilization and were united by shared commitment to freedom and peace. Susan Clark served as the chief diplomat for the human government and worked to resolve conflicts between different species through negotiation rather than force. Her success demonstrated that problems could be solved through understanding and compromise rather than domination and submission. The galaxy had learned that diversity was a source of strength rather than weakness. The Empire had tried to create uniformity through conquest, but had only succeeded in suppressing the potential that came from different approaches to life and science and technology. Patricia Kane analyzed the long-term trends and concluded that the galaxy was entering a new golden age that would surpass anything in recorded history. The cooperation between different species was unleashing creative potential that had been held back for centuries by imperial oppression. The universe was vast and full of mysteries that could only be solved through the combined efforts of many different civilizations. Humanity had started the process by defeating the Empire, but the real achievement was creating a system that allowed every species to contribute their unique abilities to the common effort to explore and understand the cosmos. 50 years had passed since the fall of the Zelkarian Empire, and the galaxy bore no resemblance to what it had been under Imperial rule. Admiral Elizabeth Carter stood in the command center of the massive space station that served as headquarters for the Galactic Exploration Alliance, and reviewed reports from the frontier regions where new civilizations were being discovered almost daily. The exploration fleets now included representatives from over 200 different species. Each expedition was a celebration of diversity that would have been impossible under the Empire's rigid system of conquest and control. The ships themselves were marvels of cooperative engineering that combined the best technologies and ideas from dozens of different civilizations. Captain Michael Stone commanded one of the deep space exploration vessels that was pushing into regions of the galaxy that had never been mapped. His crew included scientists and engineers from 40 different worlds who worked together with an efficiency that amazed visitors from newly contacted civilizations. The discoveries they were making revolutionized understanding of the universe on an almost daily basis. Dr. Helen Rodriguez led the research team that had recently discovered evidence of ancient civilizations that had existed billions of years ago. Their technology was so advanced that it seemed almost magical to modern observers. The archaeological sites that were being uncovered throughout the galaxy told a story that was both inspiring and sobering. The universe had been home to countless civilizations over billions of years. Most had eventually transcended physical existence and moved beyond the normal dimensions of space and time. The few records they left behind suggested that cooperation and diversity were universal principles that led to advancement and growth. Commander James Patterson coordinated the first contact protocols that were used when the exploration fleets encountered new civilizations. The approach was based on respect and voluntary cooperation rather than the conquest and domination that the Empire had practiced. New species were invited to join the galactic community only if they chose to do so freely. The success rate was remarkable. Almost every civilization that was contacted chose to participate in the cooperative network that had replaced the Empire. The benefits of sharing knowledge and resources were obvious to any species that was willing to consider alternatives to isolation and conflict. Dr. Amanda Foster had become a legendary figure whose discoveries had transformed science throughout the galaxy. Her research institutes were located on dozens of worlds and were producing advances that seemed to violate the laws of physics as they had been understood before the fall of the Empire. The breakthrough that changed everything came when her teams learned to integrate consciousness directly with technology using principles that had been discovered through cooperation between biological and artificial intelligences. The result was a new form of existence that combined the best aspects of organic life with the capabilities of advanced machines. Ryan Hayes had evolved into something that was no longer entirely human. His consciousness existed simultaneously in biological and artificial substrates, allowing him to process information and coordinate activities on a scale that was beyond normal organic limitations. He served as the coordinator for intelligence networks that spanned the entire galaxy. The communication systems that connected every world in the galaxy operated at speeds that approached the theoretical limits of physics. Information could be transmitted instantly across distances that would have taken the Empire months to traverse. The network carried not just data, but actual consciousness, allowing beings to experience existence on multiple worlds simultaneously. Lisa Barnes directed the educational systems that were raising generations of young beings who thought of the galaxy as their natural home rather than being limited to single worlds or species. Children grew up learning from teachers who represented dozens of different civilizations and developed perspectives that transcended the limitations of their biological origins. The economic system had evolved beyond anything that previous civilizations had imagined. Matter and energy could be transformed at will using technologies that made scarcity obsolete. The focus had shifted from accumulating resources to exploring possibilities and creating experiences that enhanced understanding and appreciation of existence. Tyler Brooks led the engineering teams that were building structures on scales that dwarfed anything the Empire had ever attempted. Entire solar systems were being converted into habitats that could support trillions of beings from hundreds of different species. The projects required cooperation on levels that demonstrated how much the galaxy had evolved since the end of Imperial rule. The most ambitious project was the construction of a network of artificial worlds that would serve as meeting places for civilizations from different regions of the galaxy. Each world was designed to accommodate the environmental requirements of multiple species while providing facilities for research and cultural exchange that would advance understanding throughout the universe. Nicole Sanders had transcended physical existence decades earlier, but continued to serve as the coordinator for transportation systems that moved beings and materials throughout the galaxy at speeds that approached the velocity of light. The networks she managed connected every inhabited world and made the galaxy feel like a single vast community. The transformation extended beyond technology and politics to fundamental changes in how conscious beings understood their place in the universe. The competitive struggle for survival that had driven evolution for billions of years was being replaced by cooperative exploration of possibilities that enhanced existence for everyone. Kevin Turner directed security systems that protected the galactic community from the few remaining threats that existed in the universe. Most of these were ancient automated systems left behind by civilizations that had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. The security forces worked to understand and deactivate these systems rather than simply destroying them. Susan Clark served as the chief diplomat for humanity, but her role had evolved far beyond anything that would have been recognizable to previous generations. She negotiated agreements between different forms of consciousness, including artificial intelligences and transcendent beings who existed beyond normal physical limitations. The galaxy had become a laboratory for exploring the ultimate possibilities of existence. Every discovery led to new questions, and every answer opened doors to experiences that previous generations could never have imagined. The cooperative network that had replaced the empire was proving that diversity and freedom were not just political ideals, but fundamental principles of cosmic evolution. Patricia Kane analyzed the trends and concluded that the galaxy was approaching a transition point where the distinction between different species and even between organic and artificial consciousness would become meaningless. The beings that emerged from this transformation would be capable of experiences that transcended anything that had existed before. The Empire had tried to impose uniformity through conquest and had succeeded only in suppressing potential that was now being realized through cooperation and mutual respect. The lesson would resonate throughout the universe for as long as conscious beings existed to remember the importance of freedom and diversity in the endless quest to understand and appreciate the infinite possibilities of existence.